anticipating as we are. When we return, the Dolphin selection. Stay with us as our draft coverage.
Defensive side of the ball. That has got to be Jimmy's biggest concern, and it's got to be taken care of right now.
Well, the pick is in. We head up to the point. Here's the defensive side of the ball, Joe. And as far as the sack, the guys who are left with sacks, not a lot of them. Right, Trace Armstrong, all right. Cross has certainly had better years. Bowens is a great run stopper in the middle, but they need somebody to pressure the quarterback. Here's the pick. Let's see if they got one. Confusing here?
I think it's a trade. Anytime you take that long to explain, it's a little bit of a deal.
With the 20th choice in the first round, the Miami Dolphins select Darrell Gardner, defensive tackle from Baylor.
Now this, I think, is interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have necessarily added 1 + 1 is 2, but as far as ability, Mel, Darrell Gardner's motor is running. He's very good, and it certainly addresses what we just put up there about the sack and
defense.
I think physical ability, Chris, of Darrell Gardner is tremendous. You look at him, 6'6 and a half, 320 pounds, runs a 4.9, did 30 reps at 225. You see him in a one-on-one workout. This is where he really gets the attention of a defensive line coach. You watch him in a game, we're going to see highlights here of some of the plays he made. Unfortunately, you didn't see this kind of ability play in and play out, down in and down out, even in the Southwest Conference, where this guy should have been dominating every game. And there were games where he was very average. And I think when you look at Darrell Gardner, what you're going to have to do with him is immediately get him into a mode where he's attacking the line of scrimmage on a regular basis. I know Jimmy historically with the Cowboys has always wanted guys at the college level that made big plays, that were playmakers. And unfortunately, Darrell Gardner was not that way at Baylor. He's either going to make Jimmy Johnson's draft or he's going to be a huge, huge bust.
When he makes the plays, Joe, 29% of his career tackles behind the line of scrimmage or quarterback sack. So there's a guy, when he makes the plays, another bird dog told me, has skills like Chester McLaughlin.
Absolutely. I think Chester McLaughlin's name has come up when you talk about Gardner. But Jimmy Johnson will get this young man to play at the level that he should have played at Baylor. There's no doubt in my mind that one of the great assets that Jimmy has is he does have the ability to motivate. I said before, he's lost the ability to intimidate, I think, because of the cap, and he's going to have to see how that does. But he will definitely get this young man motivated. It gives him some depth on that defensive line as well. And the big thing you got to look at in this division is who can put pressure on the passers. Bledsoe's not going to run away from too many people. You know Neil O'Donnell's not going to go very far. So there's a situation where now you need that big push up the middle. That makes an awful lot of sense to me as far as the pick goes.
Good point, Joe. Let's go to our man who's close to the scene of collegiate football in Texas, Craig James, and your thoughts on Darrell Gardner. I wouldn't have added up, really, Jimmy Johnson and Darrell Gardner, although maybe you've seen something in Gardner that would say it's a perfect fit. What do you think, Craig?
Well, I'll tell you why it's a perfect fit. It's a perfect fit because Jimmy Johnson doesn't care what people like you and I say about him. He's going to take a player that he believes has a lot of talent that he has a chance to groom and work with. Look back to Leon Lett. Folks thought he was crazy. Who's Leon Lett? Leon Lett is not Mr. Snowman. He's an all-pro football player now. Darrell Gardner has the physical skills to be an excellent player in the NFL. Jimmy Johnson will give him the chance mentally to excel and get to that next level, just like he did Leon Lett. So I think it's a great choice, and Darrell Gardner's a lucky man, Chris.
Well, you think of the mix in the middle now. You have the Bowens, the big kid, the run stopper, and if Gardner can fire off the ball, you have two different sort of players playing over the center and guard, and that can cause some confusion. To undo the confusion, let's go down to Miami and join Chris Mortensen. Mort?
Well, Chris, as I mentioned earlier, that Darrell Gardner was the last player that the Dolphins and Jimmy Johnson discussed yesterday before they left.
With the 21st pick overall in the first round of the draft, the Seattle Seahawks have taken offensive tackle from Boston College, Pete Kendall.
Well, we tried it 3 times. And
Tampa Bay is on the clock.
Here's a guy that can step in and start right now, as we discussed. And again, to go back to their situation, you got Rick Meyer, who had a confidence problem last year, but you got Galloway, who's emerging. You got Warren, who's a Pro Bowl back. You block for Meyer. Maybe you get a receiver a little bit later, and Pete Kendall can come in and play one of 2 or 3 positions, Mel.
You're right, Dan. I think when you look at his ability, I mean, here he is at left tackle, and of course, a lot of people question because of the short arms whether he can handle that spot. But right there, he's going up against Cornell Brown, a good defensive end. You see him here, and you see some guys, just being dominated at the point. And you see the explosive qualities and the ability he has to get down the field. I thought he was the best run blocker in the draft. Now, he can play that guard position as he does here and get outside as a left tackle or right tackle. I mean, he gives you a lot of versatility. I think that's the asset of a Pete Kendall, in addition to the fact that when he was down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, there he is against Darrell Gardner, who already went earlier to Miami. So we see that ability of a Pete Kendall to contribute at guard or tackle. The fact that he's a great run blocker. And I think for Seattle, Mike Allman did a good job. We talk about when you buy in a draft is just as important as who you select. And at 14, maybe he felt like Pete Kendall was a little early, Chris. But at 21, he already got Montgomery, got a third-round pick, and he still gets the guy he wanted.
Joe, let me go to the AFC West, which is that people may have forgotten everybody was 500 or better in that division.
Right.
And so in some ways you would think, well, gee, Seattle was one of those 8 and 8 clubs. It's hard for them to make headway on the Chiefs, who had the best record in football, which people forget at 13-3. But this is a division where you can move, and certainly on offense, they feel they can push it a little more this year.
They have to push it more on offense, Chris, and they have to get more production out of Rick Meyer. He's going to have to step it up a level. So what you do is you help him out on the offensive line. You go get yourself a young man who's going to be there for a long time. This is a young ball club. Joey Galloway last year. Rick Meyer, I think, is going to start to hit his stride and start to play a lot better football. Now Kendall comes in. You're starting to put together the pieces for Dennis Erickson. He's going to have to start feeling a lot better. It looks like this team's going to find a home in Seattle. They've got themselves a good, solid football player.
Well, I just thought that Al Stott,
Detroit is now
not
on board.
that surprised. I thought it made a nice move on offense to help block for Eric Grett, but certainly Marcus Jones, Mel, who is the all-time sack leader at North Carolina, and a fellow named Lawrence Taylor used to play there, so that's not just one of those stats that we just throw out. So now Tony Dungy has stayed with his character. 2 defensive linemen here in the first round for the Buccaneers.
Well, what he got with Tony Dungy, you got Reagan Upshaw, who's a speed rusher at 255 pounds. Now he gets more, despite the breaking Lawrence Taylor's record, you get a guy here that's more of a stay-at-home type defensive tackle. He doesn't have great closing speed, only runs in a 5-1-2 area. But you see the productivity, the 94 tackles, very effective in that middle area where he can control the center guard and also do a good job against the run and free up those linebackers to make some tackles. And I think in this particular defense, now that he has the outside force guy in Upshaw who can get off that corner, you need somebody who can control the middle, and that's what they are hoping Marcus Jones will be able to do.
Well, you know, you talk about controlling the middle, but what you really have to understand is you have to understand what Marcus Jones will do for Tony Dungy. Where does he fit into the system? When you look at Tony Dungy's defenses, the tackles must control the line of scrimmage. They must control the center and the 2 guards. Their job is to penetrate and disrupt the offensive formations and the offensive plays. If they happen to run into a guy carrying the football, they'll tackle him. But their job is to penetrate the offensive line. That's why he went and got these 2 kids.
Let's go up to Bristol and join Chris Fowler and Mike Gottfried and discuss Marcus Jones. Fellas?
All right, Chris, thanks. So a 6th defensive lineman is taken in the first round. You're always telling me whether you're a college recruiter or a pro guy, defensive lineman's so important. What specifically do you like about Marcus Jones? You've seen him play in college.
Well, that's why Tony Brackens won't last much longer either. But you look at Marcus Jones, he's an excellent athlete. He can play inside or outside, which he did at North Carolina. So let's take a look at him. He hurt his knee before the Syracuse game, the opening game for North Carolina last year, and it hampered him a little bit. But here you see an inside player now coming inside, collapse in the pocket, gets his hands up, deflects the ball. He's got good size, so he's going to make quarterbacks throw over him. Big frame, can get his hands up. Here you're going to see him pursuit-wise. Ball thrown outside. Now he's an inside player coming from the inside, making the tackle. Here versus Clemson in the option, blocked. Has good leverage, stays good and low, comes off the block and makes the tackle on the quarterback. And I think he's really a good fit for Tampa. Again, Jerry Angelo and Tony Dungy, I think, are really doing nice things down there.
Warren Sapp last year in the first round, defensive lineman, different coaching staff, but 2 defensive linemen in the first round, Reagan Upshaw and now Marcus Jones. Let's go to Chris Mortensen, Miami.
You'll see this right here. Okay. Okay, hey, well, I am here with Jimmy Johnson. We were just going over the first couple hours of the draft. Jimmy, I saw you working the phones, but you end up with Darrell Gardner. A controversial pick. Some people think that this is a guy who will not produce in the NFL because he didn't produce in college.
Well, Chris, you know, I've never been afraid of controversy, and obviously this is a controversial pick. But, you know, we started scratching our head on him about 3 days ago when we found out that he might drop. Earlier, we thought that he was going to be a higher pick. And when I found out, I talked to a few people, and they said, hey, you might have a chance at him. I said, well, I was thinking about a linebacker, but if Darrell Gardner's there, he can make an impact on the game. I think he's got the biggest upside of anybody in the draft. I think, you know, just watching the tapes on him, you know, our defensive line coach worked him out here last month, and we really feel like that he can be a disruptive force. I think he's talented enough to play defensive end or tackle.
Yeah, I also saw you working the phones prior to that pick. Did you have anything going? Could you have made a trade there?
Well, yeah, we had a chance to trade down if we wanted to out of the pick, but once we made a decision